The FujiCast is an independent Loading Zone production.
Kev, I went to your favoritist place in the whole wide world, with the exception perhaps of that ranch you have in the family in Spain, which I know you love, which you'll be going back to this year, won't you? Or next year, 2022? Surely, Kev, that's the year, isn't it?
Right, I will.
Yeah.
Even if I have to swim, I'm going.
What if they sold it in the meantime? Will you just go there, knock on the door and go in and claim it for a month?
No, I wouldn't have to go in. I'd just turn up in my Speedos, just get in the pool for a month.
Yeah.
They wouldn't mind, whoever owned it by then. Fine.
I'm sure they wouldn't. But no, I'm talking about Brighton, Kev. I went to Brighton. So It's over a week ago now, and I know you love that place, don't you?
Yeah.
There's something about Brighton that just, it's great for photography.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I love it. It's it's got such a nice vibe to it as well.
Yeah.
They've really upped it in the last kind of 20 years or so, Brighton. Yeah, really nice.
One of my strongest memories of Brighton is when we went, you and I. We went with Patrick Larocque. We went with Facundo as well. And it was like an 18mm street photography fest. Well, those two anyway, definitely. And I just remember as we walked along, just on the left-hand side, as we walked we came out of the pier, turned left, walked along a bit, and I just remember a tourist being mugged by a huge gull that had this person's chips.
Well done for not saying seagull, by the way.
I did my best there. Which Facundo howled at and thought it was hilarious. It was almost like he'd never seen a gull in his life.
I don't think they get them in Argentina.
Do they not?
No.
Is it a gull-free zone?
Yeah, I think so. It's just like, I think they just get polar bears down there. There's no other animals.
What, in Argentina where he lives?
Yeah, that's it. Oh, and
polar
jaguars.
What? Kev, do you know anything about wildlife?
Jaguars, yeah. That's jaguars and pumas. They're the that's the logo on the rugby crest of Argentina.
Oh.
That's it. Just them and polar bears. That's all there is.
Kev, you don't get polar bears in Argentina.
Pumas and jaguars. That's all there is in Argentina.
Really?
I've been there and I didn't see any other animals.
No, nothing at all then.
The FujiCast.
There's got to be something. What do you have in Malmesbury? Polar bears and pumas.
Oh, we got loads of people. Yeah, we get animals from Tetbury quite a lot.
What is your county animal, Kev? Do you know in the Wiltshire crest? What is the?
I don't know about Wiltshire, but the jackdaw is Malmesbury. I know that.
Is it the jackdaw?
Yeah, the nickname of the town is Jackdaws.
Is it really? Mm-hmm. Well, I would never have known stuff you didn't know about where Kev lives. Well, welcome to the FujiCast. Here we are. Another Monday diet of your emails and your Facebook messages that you've sent in to be answered on the show. Also, of course, we have a book of the week. What's the book of the week this week, Kev?
Oh, the book of the week is Fred Herzog, Modern Colour.
And what's that roughly about, Kev? Apart from colour.
It's Fred Herzog's pictures in colour.
Okay. And of course, if we have our guest now, we had sort of in two parts. Part one was last week. Part two coming up this week. Who's our guest, Kev?
Darren Goldstein.
Yes.
I love that chat. Really, really interesting, I thought.
I tell you what, when I looked into Darren's work, clearly I knew of him because we've talked about him before. But when you start to look more at his work, actually, it's a great plethora. You tend to think, initially I just thought, he's obviously always on set. He's always somewhere really nice with a film crew. But actually, he does delve into social photography as well, doesn't he?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's a fantastic photographer. Yeah.
Complete all-rounder. Right. We should do some bump to the fronts to start with because we have a few, don't we? Do you want to launch with a patronage?
First of all, thank you to our new patron supporters, of which there's been two recently, Carl Britt and Jeff Petrie. So thank you guys.
It all counts, Kev. It all counts.
For supporting. It does indeed. We had to have the vet out to the horse last night for the first time.
Oh, no.
Emergency vet.
Oh, what was the matter?
Oh, something wrong with it, expect.
Well, I get that, Kev, but I just wonder what was wrong with it.
I didn't really ask that. I just asked how much the bill was going to be.
Well, you must have come across as really empathic.
Well,
how much is this costing me? If it's too much, send it to McDonald's, please.
Oh no, I was quite worried about the poor thing. Actually, it's a sweet little horse. Well, actually, it's a sweet, enormous horse.
Yeah, it's big.
I don't know what was wrong with it though. Something to do with the hay, and I think it had asthma or something. Anyway,
how'd you get one of those great big asthma inhalers to a horse's mouth?
What was the question again? What were we doing?
Stay there. I don't know. It was
patrons. That was it. Patrons. Yeah. Thank you. Yes, thank you very much for your support. And we do have a couple of bump to the front. So remember, if you're a patron, you do get priority over your questions. And the first one is from Chris Ruhr. He says, "Hi Kev, hi Neil. I hope you guys are tickety-boo." Nice reference to the book of the week a couple of weeks ago. Thanks for making the FujiCast such a brilliant way to share your vast knowledge with inspiring books and guests. I'm thinking of creating a Tog merch zine.
Now, straight away, you need to learn something that Kev is not very keen on the word tog, and actually, zine is a problem for you as well, isn't it?
Or merch.
You picked out the three things that Kev doesn't really appreciate.
Tog merch zine. And actually, I think that's the point of the question. There's a big smiley, laughy face at the end of it. Hope Kev would have some useful opinions. Obviously, he's going to include silent letters and snapshots.
Yes, of course. I think he's playing to your irritations, Kev.
It's not a real question, as I just figured out. Yes. But yes, thank you for making my hackles rise.
Have your hackles risen? Quick, call out the vet. Kev's in trouble. I'm not. How much is it, vet? If it's any more than £5.50, put him down.
It's a female horse.
No, I know your one is. I was talking about you.
Oh, God, no. Nobody will pay £5.50 to keep me going. Right, I'll move. Michael Honkomp says, "Hey, Kev. Hey, Neil. I was picking up a used Nikon Z7 camera off MPB and had the question pop into my head. With the limited shutter life of cameras, albeit not likely to really run into it, given the limit that I'm not a professional shooter, I was curious what your thoughts are on exclusively using the electronic shutter. I am primarily a natural light shooter of slow-moving objects, mountains and flowers and such. Mountains move really slowly. So I wouldn't think I'd have any concerns about banding or rolling shutter. Am I missing anything?"
Well, without the shutter flapping about in the wind of your creativity, you've got to be thinking about longer life, haven't you, Kev?
I mean, the XT4, I think, was the first camera that Fujifilm actually gave a estimated shutter life on.
Yeah.
None of the others they did, because, it's just not really a thing.
What was that shutter life, Kev? Do you remember?
I think it's 450,000 estimated shutter life.
Yeah.
And presumably they've started giving that figure because warranty and all that kind of stuff. If your shutter falls out your camera and it's only done a certain amount, then you can probably go back to the warranty. I've no idea about the Nikons or Canons and all that, but I guess they all work on the same technology. I wouldn't personally think it would affect anything. I have my camera set constantly to use mechanical plus electronic shutter. So I would say it pushes the electronic shutter maybe 10, 20% of the time. But yeah, I don't really think about that, to be awfully honest with you. I mean, if I was a wedding photographer, some people, rightly or wrongly, it doesn't matter, but some people shoot 10, 15, 20,000 frames at a wedding, then I think I'd probably be a little bit more concerned about my shutter life. But yeah, it's not something that ever really comes to my mind.
What about some of those foibles of electronic shutter, Kev, like slow-moving stuff and banding, that kind of thing? That can be a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a lot better now. So I don't know about the Nikon cameras, but the Fujifilm X-T4 specifically, I don't really see any banding these days, even under artificial light. X Pro 3, X Pro 2, that kind of camera, it was a little bit more obvious. And so I would always have to check. I'd usually take a rapid burst of maybe 10 frames in electronic.
Yeah.
But yes, so yeah, use the electronic shutter, slow-moving subjects. If you're outdoors as well, should be absolutely fine. I would have no dramas with that whatsoever.
Most of these cameras now have I'm going to call it an anti-bander, which is a bit like your anti-Nancy. But
anti-flicker.
Anti-flicker. Anti-flicker. So
but the anti-flicker is actually not necessarily for the electronic shutter, well, certainly in the Fujifilm world. Anti-flicker is because you often get, in fact, in these really, really super low power lights, you get the banding in the mechanical shutter as well.
Yeah.
It can happen. So that anti-flicker is really for that. It's not specifically for the electronic shutter stuff.
You can always tell when a hotel or a venue or something has not really bought the best lighting.
Well, maybe they have. I don't know. I mean,
no, they haven't. If it's flickering like mad, it's not set to our Hertz rate, is it?
Well, I don't know. I mean, they can go really slow and still emit light, can't they? Which means that they're saving power, saving energy.
Well, that's it. what's good for Greta is not necessarily good for photography.
Absolutely. Right.
We did have another Patreon one, actually. Kev, did you get the one from Hludis?
About the book?
Yeah, I just came across this photographer, Karen Marshall. I thought she might make a great interview subject for the podcast. So I just wanted Hludis to know that we have got it, and it's in the file.
I bet that's not how you pronounce his name.
Well, you know actually what it is, don't you now? It took me a long time to realise what Hludis is.
What is it?
Turn the name backwards.
Sidwell.
Yeah. And then as you look down the patronage, you'll notice somebody in there with the surname Sidwell. Is that made your day, Kev? No, not really.
Yeah.
But for I don't know, for as long as this, and it's almost 3 years, I think Hludis has been with us for such a long time.
Yeah.
And I never knew that until one day he said, you know, that's my surname the wrong way round.
Okay, so we do have one other patron bump to the front, and this is from Renots Edna.
Is that the wrong way round?
Yeah. Figure that one out.
Read what? Sorry?
Renots Edna.
Oh, I don't know.
And Estonia. Anyway, he's talking about we were talking about having a contract clause for retouching in our contracts.
Yes.
It's not a question, it's a point. He says, I've also got one for wedding venue retouching too. Way back when a church had scaffolding on it for a service, which wasn't there when the couple booked. So they wanted him to Photoshop it all out, and so he's now got a contract clause for retouching buildings. God, you could go on forever, couldn't you?
God, you could, couldn't you? That's an interesting point, actually, because when you can't avoid the scaffold sometimes in a photograph. And okay, if you're out there you've got a long time to make particular pictures, and you're doing something for the town council about the town, you'd clearly go around and find places that didn't show scaffold. But if you're photographing an event like a wedding, then there are moments you can't help it, because you might be missing a moment. If you think, oh no, that's such a great moment, but there's scaffold all around them.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Take pictures of the scaffold.
And then superimpose it back in.
I mean, you obviously do your best. If there's an opportunity to get shot without it in the background, you would do that. But if there isn't, it's there, isn't it?
Yeah,
you know,
true.
It's like I've been doing a few workshops in London recently, and London is literally every single corner has got construction on it.
So much at the moment, yeah. But that's the same with roadworks. Have you noticed the proliferation of roadworks now, Kev? It's almost like, and I know you have to build yourself out of recession and build yourself out of Brexit and build yourself out of COVID and God knows what other things we have to build ourselves out of. But I've never noticed. We obviously spend quite a lot of time returning home to our houses from quite late at night because of the events that we photograph. And the amount of roads that are closed, you go one way, you think, what? If it's in the middle of nowhere. What are you doing?
Yeah, well, in London especially, it's because they're building that super massive railway that will allow rich people to get to Birmingham 4 minutes quicker, won't they? So they're cutting up half the country and spending billions and billions on it.
Kev, it's a connection for everybody, not just for people in pinstriped suits. Well, it is.
You tell me that when there's only first-class carriages allowed.
No, Kev, it doesn't.
All the normal people will be getting there 4 minutes later and paying a lot less.
There's no such thing as a first-class only train. And remember, it's also to allow more capacity, Kev, more freight trains, be greener. So it's for capacity, not just for first-class only trains, which don't exist anyway, Kev. There isn't, Kev. Oh, God, power to the people. Do you remember him? Wolfie Smith. Yeah. Power to the people. Right.
Tooting Liberation Front.
Yes, that's the one. Brilliant. What memories. Oh, who played that? Brilliant actor. What was his name?
That was, he died, didn't he?
Did he? No.
Yeah, I'm sure he died.
We better check this now that you've said that. Tooting Liberation.
Citizen Smith. Robert Lindsay.
Robert Lindsay.
He hasn't died, has he, Robert Lindsay?
I don't think Robert Lindsay's still with us.
Yeah.
Let me just check, though. Robert Lindsay, born 13th of December 1949, age 71 years, still very much with us.
Good.
Thank heavens for that. I tell you who isn't with us.
Che Guevara.
No. Who was the song and dance guy that died last week?
Oh, yes. God.
This is a bit like a competition that a colleague of mine on the radio used to do called Dead or Alive, and you'd have to say whether they were dead or alive.
What's his name? He used to be on that program.
Starts with B.
Tony Blair. No, not Tony Blair.
Tony Blair's still alive.
Russell Blair. No, Blair. No. It's something Blair, isn't it?
Dancer What Died.
Blair. I'm sure it's Blair.
Oh, Isadora Duncan. No, it wasn't Isadora Duncan.
He was on Give Us a Clue, and he was on
Lionel Blair.
Lionel Blair. That's it. Lionel Blair.
Yeah. Well, it's been a sort of a joke, a running joke in our family for many, many years, because great grandma, who did actually pass a decade, maybe more ago now, she always used to say, "Such a shame Lionel Blair's dead." And we say, "Lionel Blair's still alive, Granny." "No, he's dead." "No, he's very..." So when he died the other day, we did sort of obviously sort of cast an eye up towards great Granny and say, "There we go, Lionel's with you now, great Granny." There we go. Right.
I like Lionel Blair.
Yeah.
Wholesome entertainer.
He was. That was a whole sort of wholesome entertainment period, wasn't there, of Morecambe and Wise and people like that. Anybody in America now is thinking, who are these people you're talking about?
Yeah.
Right.
Don't bother looking them up on Netflix.
They probably won't have a series on Netflix, no. This is one from Jason Stafford. This really is a question for us, Kev, though it came to Photography Daily, but oddly for us both. Are you the new guest presenter or something? Are you trying to tell me something? Am I being hoisted from my own show? But it does. It goes, "Hi, Neil. Hi, Kev." Well, we did it, almost. I'm a wedding photographer, I think, still. We're on the home run out of 21 into 2022, though we still have COVID to contend with. There do seem some positive signs that perhaps 2022 will bring some better times that you both talk about. 2 questions. With hindsight, oh no, is there anything you would have done differently with your own businesses to get to this stage? How will you future-proof? Well, actually, Kev, I think your business was a lot better than mine during COVID. You're a clever chap for a start. You made yourself some presets and things like that.
Did that? Is he on about recently, or is he on about generally over the years?
Oh, well, that's the question. So I guess now he means generally in future years, future-proof. So to protect ourselves against this thing ever damaging our businesses again.
Well, I mean, yeah, hindsight is a wonderful thing, but you can't legislate for total unknown things happening, can you? You can have insurance against such things, which will cost a fortune. I
don't know of any photographers that were insured in any way, shape, or form against this, were they?
Well, not necessarily photographers, although you probably could get insurance for it now. But there was a lot of businesses had insurance against natural virological disasters or something like that.
Well, is this a new policy now?
No. They all had it. Loads of them had it. It was this kind of standard policy. And then when everything shut, everybody went to their insurance companies, and the insurance companies countered it by saying, no, what that means is locally. So, for example, if there's a gas leak,
you're right,
or a chemical plant explodes in your local area and everything has to close down, everybody has to stay indoors, then you're covered for that. You're not covered for a global pandemic. So the wording in the contracts was all a bit skew-if. But that clause, there was a lot of people that went to the insurance companies for that. My gym did for a start, and they didn't get anywhere, but they were right to do it. So yeah, I'm sure you could get insurance for that kind of thing now. Yeah, I would say that for me, I really kind of got my head down and did things that I'd always planned on doing and never really had time for it. So that kind of saved my bacon. Future, what would happen? Okay, let's throw the cards on the table. What would happen if tomorrow, Boris, combed his hair, got on the telly again, and said, "Right, everybody has to stay at home for the next 6 months."
Oh God!
What would you do?
Did you say cards on the table or keys on the table? And that's a whole different party. I don't know.
What would you do
if Boris did that? Oh, crikey, Kev! I'm going to be a DPD driver. I can't think. I couldn't do this again. I battled as much as I could to get through this, including Boris loans and all sorts of other stuff, and doing odds and bobs that I could do, and launching podcasts. But I didn't do what a lot of people had to do, which is go out and get another job as a cab driver or a delivery driver or retail. Although retail wasn't around for a while, I don't know that. I think that's the only thing that would be left to me, Kev.
I mean, one thing that lockdown certainly So I was chatting to a friend of mine a couple of weeks ago, popped over to Malmesbury for coffee, and we were having a chat about, things that we learned during lockdown. And he said something really interesting, and it's very true of everybody, I guarantee it, that the lockdown taught us what we didn't need and how little we actually need to survive. So, you don't need a cleaner, you don't need a gardener, you don't necessarily need new clothes.
Steady on, Kev. There's gardeners here saying, hang on, Kev, that's our business.
You don't need them though, do you? You don't. Let's face it. You don't need them. You need them if you haven't got the time for this stuff.
Well, we found out that people didn't need most types of photographer.
Well, exactly. But I'm on about your general home living now.
Yes.
So, you survived without getting takeaways. You survived eating different things. Yeah. You spent the actual, most people, and this is a very broad generalization, but the economists say that most people actually saved money if they weren't impacted by their job. So all the people that were, sent home to work and everything, and were lucky enough not to have a salary.
The 9 to 5, the salaried 9 to 5ers. Yeah, you're talking about. They
saved money. Well, yes. even the ones that were, just didn't have to kind of get in the car in the morning and all that kind of stuff. The money that's gone into savings accounts went up a lot during lockdown.
Oh yeah, one of our friends came out of it with a lovely electric car and a load of stuff done to the house and.
Yeah, exactly.
My word.
And, so it does prove that, if you, of course, we all want to have nice things in our lives and we all want to do things and everything, but you can get by without stopping at Costa Coffee in the morning and getting a coffee on the way in. You can get by with all that stuff. You don't want to do that at all, but you can. And so I think that's the main thing I learned from lockdown is that there's a lot of stuff in my life that probably I spend on that I don't really need. There's a big difference between need and want, isn't there?
Well, very much. Well, what about Jason's question though? How would you future-proof now? Were you in terms of photography? Well, I think actually certainly going off in different directions and having a tentacular business would be the thing you...
Well, what's an octopus got to do with this?
My friend the octopus. So we're back to that movie. My octopus friend. Wasn't it my octopus? Oh, never mind.
No, you're on about that. You're on about a 10-legged octopus, aren't you? Tentaculars.
No. No, I'm talking about the sort of the way that you reach out and grab different elements of your business. And instead of a photographer thinking, right, that is all I do, now I did have to think about, okay, well, I can do sound, so I'll invest a bit of time in my sound business and voiceovers, and I've started doing more of that kind of thing. And then in photographic terms, I thought, right, okay, well, what about all those people that haven't had albums? And funnily enough, there were people around that did want to buy albums. They were your 9-to-5ers that weren't so affected as you.
Yeah, and they were saving money, so they had the cash to do it then.
Money for albums, that's it. And then think commercial photography. Whereas in the past, I've always thought, I've really only got time for this. Actually, there's loads more time for other types of. So I think future-proofing means that you. I know there are now that flies in the face though of all those people that say, well, if you want to be the best of the best, rise to the top and be the kind of photographer that people say, go to that person because they do X. That's the disadvantage of having an approach that's wider. But I think future-proofing for me as a social photographer, because I'm not at the top of my game as an environmental photographer or editorial photographer. I'm the kind of photographer that needs to go off in different directions, and that's how to future-proof, I think, for me.
Yeah, for me, if the doors are closed again tomorrow, there's no doing anything, photography-wise. I think my takeaway from it, my hindsight vision is slightly different in that I think that if we can't shoot, we can't shoot, can't do it. Maybe presets, whatever I've done those now. Probably can't do any more of those. But the online training worked really well. That kind of stuff, But I feel like the wider picture has been more important for me. For example, I don't know, overpaying the mortgage a little bit and stuff like that, with the hope of getting rid of that monkey on my back earlier, that kind of thing.
But that's not future-proofing the business. This is Jason.
Well, it is, because if I didn't have to pay my mortgage, I wouldn't have to do the business.
No, but you've got to do the business to overpay the mortgage, Kev.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But I'm on about in the times where we haven't got a global pandemic, which hopefully won't be another one for a very long time. Every 100 years we'll get one.
Please, Boris, can we have our Christmas back? He had a second part to the question. Have we got
Christmas is going to be shit this year.
Why?
Because there ain't nothing in the shops. Honestly, I went to buy a toothbrush this morning. No toothbrushes in the co-op. No
What?
toothbrushes. I said to the lady, when do you think you might get some toothbrushes in? She said, we haven't had any for 6 weeks.
Well, there's plenty here. I bought 100 packs last week.
How many teeth have you got?
No, I'm just talking about hoarding, Kev. I was being a wrong.
Oh, right, I see.
Oh, never mind. Whoosh, whoosh, it was like a red arrow over your head.
It did go over my head, yeah.
Right,
But,
he had a second part to the question, but I think should we come back and do that one, because otherwise this half's going to be extremely long. Or do you want to do it now, and make the second half a little bit shorter? What do you want to do, Kev?
I know you can. I'm in the middle of reading this article about Gareth Bale, so you can carry on because
Okay.
I'm not quite finished.
Well, once again, Kevin is doing something else while we're trying to do the podcast. My business, he said, has been through real ups and downs, as have all our businesses, but I can't help but feel the world rather left me behind at times. We've kind of talked about that within the answer. Well, watching your friends look at you with pity was the hardest thing, but then equally my peers haven't always been the easiest collection of friends either. How do you cope with the public exclamations of success when you're still going through the ringer? Keep up the good work, Jason.
Yeah.
I think you have a responsibility to your peers. That doesn't mean that you go online. I mean, let's talk about social is where most of this happens. Let's be honest, isn't it? You go online and say, well, I'm all right, or, but there's nothing wrong with being successful. And Americans always used to say that, the problem with being British is that we don't celebrate success. Whereas in America, they do, don't they? Oh, you've got a Porsche. Well done you. How can I get one of those? Whereas, oh, you got a Porsche. Yeah.
Let's scratch it. Get a coin on it.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. But yes, this sort of, I'm doing so well, I've got all this. Haven't I done well? Waiting for somebody to say, oh, you've done so well. Well done you. It's a fine line, isn't it, Kev? Particularly when you're thinking about, I think you need to show your empathic self. You need to think about other. When you write stuff, think about how that would affect you if you weren't in that position.
Yeah, I agree with that totally. You should think before you throw your hand fists at the keyboard kind of thing. That said, there's quite a few people, not many, but quite a few people who are simply jealous. Don't like other people being successful.
Yeah.
And, they're your typical keyboard warriors, aren't they? Sorry. And,
steady on, aren't you? Thank you very much, Kev.
Sorry. I've just finished the article. I'm going to see Wales-Belgium tomorrow night, so I'm really excited. Poor Albie. This is another quick interjection. Yeah. So I booked tickets to go see Wales-Belgium, the last World Cup qualifier. All his heroes, Gareth Bale, Aaron Ramsey, half the Man City team playing for Belgium, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Lukaku, all of those. And he's really excited. And then Gemma said, when are you going to watch football? So I was like, next Tuesday. Only for her then to tell us all that, that's the week that Albie's away on his residency in school.
Oh, no.
Oh, my God. Talk about heartbreaking. Boom.
How did you tell him?
You have a heartbroken heart. You have two broken hearts, mine and his.
Oh.
So I will send him some pictures. Anyway.
When is the match on? Is this match just gone as we're doing this show?
No, it's tomorrow night.
It's tomorrow night. Well, you're getting much better at this than me, Kev, now. You remember.
Yes, quite. So, yeah. So Gareth Bale will, assuming he played on Saturday, just gone, will have got his 100th cap. So he'll be on his 101st cap should he come on against Belgium and not get injured.
Well, at least if you lose or you get thumped, Albie doesn't have to see it.
True. Yeah, I've taken him to 3 football games and we've lost every one. Wow. So I'm kind of glad he's not coming in a way. Anyway, yes. So keyboard warriors, there are some of them out there.
I'm available.
No, it's an under 12 ticket though.
Oh.
You could come. We could maybe, if you go on your knees and.
They say, what about his grey beard? Oh, I know.
You can shave that.
Oh, right. Okay.
We could draw some hair on your head.
I don't think we're going to get away with it, Kev.
I could get some from the horse.
Yeah.
Trim the tail a little bit, stick some on your head, and then that'd be all right. Yeah.
Oh God. Right. Go on. Sorry. As a keyboard warriors, go on.
Yeah. So keyboard warriors, ignore them. Basically, there's some of them exist, but I think mostly people like to see happy things, don't they? Success.
Yes, I think generally you're right. Happy stuff, but just bear in mind how somebody might consume that. That doesn't mean you have to be very careful about everything. Well, you have to be careful about things you write, but just bear in mind other people's feelings. And I think there was a lot of posturing done, and a lot of look. I've done 184 weddings, and bring it on. That kind of thing. My heart sank a bit every time I saw it, and I thought, why did you do that? really.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, there's a whole lot of one-upmanship. I mean, it's the world we live in, isn't it? Social world.
Right. Well, that's that well put to rights. Shall we speak to Darren Goldstein, or you rather speak to Darren Goldstein?
Indeed. Yeah, I've finished my article now, so yeah.
Let's return for this is as I said in the introduction last week. It was a bit like when Kevin. Well, it was like when Harry met Sally. It's when Kevin met Darren. Part 2.
Any kind of shoots come to mind that were something spectacularly, it doesn't have to be bad, but different, weird, strange, anything you immediately comes to mind, you think, oh yeah, I remember when that happened?
Nothing exactly, but I mean, I will say that just, I've worked on so many different sized sets and shows and productions that, they really cover the gamut in terms of how many people and how much money is involved in these. And you really do notice a difference. And obviously I don't know if it's how popular it is over there, but what's happened recently on set just a few weeks ago with Alec Baldwin, which is just a terrible, terrible story of someone getting killed by, with a prop gun that had live rounds in it, which just shouldn't be happening. And it's a whole, I don't even know how to approach it, but I've seen close calls like that, similar to that, not quite nearly as bad, but I've seen some things like that happen. Not quite with my cameras or anything like that, but right. Sometimes there's been scenes where you're an actor is working with a knife, for example, and there's a real knife and then there's a rubber knife that they're using, and sometimes you're shooting some of these productions because they are maybe a lower budget and their time constraints are less. They are rushing through a scene, and there was an incident once where someone was being told to use a knife that the director didn't realize was a real knife. And they're like, no, just pretend to slash the person. And the actor is sitting there with this knife in his hand saying, but, and the director's just do it. And it's a scary situation because the director didn't know that he had the wrong knife in his hand because they're just trying to work so quickly. So that happened, I don't know, in the last year or two. And this whole incident with this production, with Alec Baldwin's production, kind of brought back a lot of those memories. And it has made me revisit and think back to those situations. And, again, doing one of these prop shoots actually recently for the boys, we're in studio. It's one thing when you're doing the unit photography, you're with the whole crew and you're with camera people and first ADs and second ADs and first ACs and second ACs, and you have a whole crew. And if they bring out a gun, normally they're supposed to show the whole crew. They have a safety meeting about it. They show the whole crew and they say, okay, here's a gun. We have the safety of it. It's been deregulated. It doesn't have live rounds, and they'll present that to everybody. But when you're on some of these smaller like prop shoots or whatnot, so they pull out a gun, and they don't quite do that as much because you might only have 3, 4, 5 people on set. So I have to now, even then before this incident, but especially now, it's I have to kind of take it upon myself to say, hold on, can you show me that gun is deregulated or doesn't have live rounds in it? Because at the end of the day, that camera is going to most likely be pointed right at me. So it was definitely a big wake up call, this incident that happened, and it's just terrible. And my heart goes out to everybody involved in that. It's not good.
It was awful. And actually, over the last few years, there's been quite a few instances of people being injured and things that I've picked up on in the press. I think they're making a new Indiana Jones movie as well, I think. And who is it? Who does Indiana Jones? My God, my mind's gone completely blank.
Harrison
Ford. Yeah, I think he broke his leg or something. I think they were filming that over here and he broke his leg. And so he's out of action for a while. But then I suppose he's probably in his 80s.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really interesting because these sets are very, very complicated, aren't they? And very, you kind of have this vision almost of like a TV studio. You have the lights and the cameras behind you, and then everything in front is set up and everything. But there's cranes, there's jibs, there's rigs, there's all kinds of safety issues, I would imagine, on these places.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And and really more to that is there's so much happening. There's so many departments and staff and crew working to make all these things happen. And it's when you really think about what goes into every single shot and every single prop. And when you look at a scene, I mean, you have people don't think about it or don't realize it, but when you are watching your favorite TV show and they're in a room and every item in that frame has been strategically placed there. So you have a set decorator putting every little bottle or cloth or whatever is in the background there. It's strategically placed so it fits in the frame. And you might have a director or cinematographer say, you know what, can we move that thing in the background just 2 inches to the right or to the left? There's so much careful, precise work going into every single shot and every scene. And I'm just a small cog in the machine. I mean, in fact, I think, us still photographers sometimes are kind of as important as we know we are to the production. I think a lot of the times we are not valued on set, and we kind of just are considered in the way a lot of the times. We're one extra body in the room. We're blocking this. We're doing that. So it's a tough balance because sometimes you do have to know when to assert yourself and say, no, I need this shot. We need to get this shot. I've been asked to get this shot. Or when to just back away and say this, at the end of the day, this isn't important. They're on a time constraint. They need to get this shot done. I'm not gonna take a time because time really is money on these sets. And I do feel a lot of the crew are very stressed. It is a very high pressure job at times. There's a lot of sitting around when you're not needed, but when you're needed, you need to get up and you need to move fast. And there is no time to make mistakes and there's no time to fix something. There's a lot of pressure. So you talk about that pressure earlier. I don't feel it as much because at the end of the day, I'm a department of one, really. Like I said, I'm on set. It's just me and I have to answer to the publicists and the producers that I'm dealing with, but that's more on the back end. I don't have someone standing over my shoulder on set, telling me, hurry up, get this shot, get this, go do this, whereas a lot of the other departments do.
Are you given a shot list or do you have kind of any reign in terms of deciding, certainly for the kind of promotional stills and things like that? Is it literally all set up by the PR company or an agency and you're there to kind of take the pictures and that's it? Or do you have any kind of input into those?
Well, typically, like the way it would go for a unit day, publicists would say, we're shooting on this day. These are the scenes, usually the publicist will read over the script and say, okay, what is going to be most interesting for publicity? And they will say, okay, we want the scene where the car flips over and the guns go, whatever. And they'll say, that's the day we want Darren there. And they will contact me. They'll say, this is when they're shooting. So we need you. They'll schedule me in and I'll show up for that time period. And it's usually a certain amount of hours. After that, it's an overtime situation. They don't really want to pay overtime too often. So it's usually about a 9-hour day for me, plus when I get back and do editing. So I will show up and they will sometimes just say, just shoot what you see, and they won't give me instruction. And other times they will say, okay, we need a shot of this. We need you to get a posed shot of this actor or actress who's going to be on set that day, or this actor is going to be in certain kind of wardrobe, which we'd really like to get. So sometimes it's we'd like to get it. Sometimes it's we must have it. Sometimes it's just go and cover whatever scenes are being shot, and they give me free reign. And as you work with these publicists and as the publicists work with me, we all understand, my style and what the expectations are over time. And eventually they trust me enough that they can just send me out on a day if there's no specific request and just send me. And I just hand back a bunch of photos that they can pick through and decide what to use and what not to use.
So in terms of the editing, you mentioned that you'll do your shoot and then you'll go home and edit. Is there obviously some of these films, some of these productions have a certain cinematic look, color grading, if you like. Are you guided by that? Are you given any instruction in terms of that, or is that just not relevant?
I haven't experienced it too much myself. I think, again, not to keep using it, but it is such a stylistic show. Like The Boys, for example, that show has such a style to it and I don't shoot unit photography for them, so it's not quite the same. But I have spoken to their unit photographer, who is excellent. And he has told me his process is different than mine. So he will shoot them and then they hand them off and someone else processes all those photos for them. He doesn't even, I don't even think he edits those anymore. For me, typically I think a lot of the look and treatment of the images goes in. I'm not one of these people who shoots everything in camera, it's perfect in camera, but when I'm on set, I will go to the cinematographer and the camera operators and I'll say, what are your settings? I'll look at their white balance and I'll try to copy that. And I'll look at the screen and try to match the tonalities that they're getting. Now their stuff gets graded as well after the fact. So we're both I'm trying to get as close as I can. Let's put it that way. From what I've seen when I do these shots and I edit them the way I edit them, typically when I see them being used, they're used as I deliver them. Sometimes it's not. In fact, it's kind of funny. One of the Murdoch, I don't know how popular it is across where you are, but Murdoch Mysteries, a show that I posted about That's one of the gallery shoots that I used the 100 on. And you have these big, beautiful files, and I've shot it perfectly clean on a white seamless backdrop, and you have these really, really clean images that I'm really proud of, and then you hand them over and they comp them all together in Photoshop, and they present you with the final result, and it looks great, but at the same time they've used all these filters and whatnot to kind of degrade the quality almost. It looks grainy and it's like, oh, okay, so that's what they did with that, $10,000 camera's photos. It's kind of funny sometimes. So it goes both ways. But typically, as far as grading goes, no, I'm not being told anything. I'm not being given a preset, for example. I just process them the way I can. I try to make them as, I don't want to say generic, but as, I don't want to do anything too funky with them. Yeah. I have worked on a few shows where they're more of a period piece. And so actually that was one of the first things I did with my Fujis. I was still loving the novelty of the film simulations. So one of the shows I shot everything in classic chrome for them and delivered every image in classic chrome. And they loved it, and I loved it. I loved the look. The final results were great.
What's the deal with how you can use those images? So things like, I don't know, your website, Instagram, and do you have to get a certain release from them for particular images? That's
probably the most frustrating part of the job, because you shoot so many images, and we all fall, as photographers, we all fall in love with our photos, and I have this amazing library of so many incredible photos. But at the end of the day, the only ones that technically that I'm even able to reshare are the ones that they share. Right. So, and they may not pick my favorite photos. Like I usually try to give a broad folder of images, and then I usually give a select folder of stuff that stood out to me, whether because on set it was important or just I think it's a really cool shot. So I will segregate those and try to push those to the client a little more and say, hey, here's a culled down version of my photos. Hopefully they'll use those. And a lot of times they do, and a lot of times they don't. So sometimes you see the photos that they choose, and you're like, I wouldn't have chosen that.
That's fascinating, Darren. Like all of that has been absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing the insights. I've got a couple of final little questions, if you like. One of them is, it says on your website again about trick-or-treating and elaborate family-themed Halloween costumes. I looked on your Instagram page, and there they were. There was the Halloween stuff. How was it this weekend? Was it good?
It was good. It was a little, it's funny. So for those that don't know, I have 3 kids, 3 daughters, and for I don't even know how many years now, but for years we've done a family themed costume every year. It's just kind of evolved over the years. We started with Star Wars because my wife's a huge Star Wars fan, and we just said, hey, why don't we just start doing themed ones? And we've done Scooby-Doo, and we've done Wizard of Oz, and we've done Grease, and all these great ones. And then over the last couple of years or few years, I've switched to kind of shooting them all in a seamless white background, and they kind of have a similar look every year. And this year, Halloween fell on a Sunday. I thought I had plenty of time to set up. I set up this backdrop right in my living room, so I don't have tons of space. I'm kind of pushed right up against the walls. And I figured this year, I was like, I've been doing this long enough that this won't take long, and there's not a lot of makeup involved. One of my oldest daughter is really into makeup and fashion, and she's a perfectionist. And I just figured this year we weren't going to have a lot of makeup. It wouldn't be a big deal. And boy, was I wrong. So I set up and thinking we'd have plenty of time to do this shoot, and we were cutting it right down to the wire. We almost had people knocking on the door, trick-or-treating while we're still shooting. Flashes are going off, camera gears everywhere. We had some family show up to hand out candy while we walked the neighborhood. And I mean, there was nowhere for them to even sit because all my gear was everywhere. It was a bit of a nightmare this year. You'd think I'd learned my lesson, but I definitely didn't. But at the end of the day, the photos came out really great. We're really happy with them.
Brilliant. It's great to see. I love looking at them on your Instagram. So, final question then is, I don't know whether this will be appropriate from a work point of view, but I always ask the guests that I speak to, if you could choose one photographer, alive or dead, to spend the day shooting with, doesn't have to be in your professional capacity, who might it be?
I think I have to go back to one or two people, and they're both kind of similar, and I've always had a thing for their work, is Annie Leibovitz. I mean, she was really my idol a long time ago, and I not to name drop here, but I have a family friend is Feist, the musician, And I've known her for years, and she once did a shoot with Leibowitz. And I remember seeing her one time. I said, "So you got to tell me, like, what was it like to work with Leibowitz?" And her response was kind of funny. She's like, "No one's ever asked me that. People always want to know about all the musicians that she's been on stage with, but she's like, no one's ever asked me about Leibowitz, of all people." So I'd say Eddie Leibowitz, and for a long time I was really into David LaChapelle's work. I still am, but there was a time when his color and his sets that he built were pretty fantastic. But so I'd probably have to say those two people.
Yeah, good choices. And what was her answer when you asked her what it was like to work with Leibowitz?
She just kind of told me about how their day went. And I mean, I've seen more now, like behind the scenes videos of the way she works, and it does seem very casual. And she's just, it's very, they have a bit of gear, but it's usually just one person holding one light, walking around, and she's just kind of doing her thing. It seems very casual, from what I can tell. So.
She is absolutely fantastic, isn't she? And I've seen pictures of her. I've never obviously seen or met her, but I have seen pictures of her walking around with an X100 around her neck as well. So she's maybe in that Fujifilm family. Darren, honestly, it's been amazing. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to speak to us. Just let everybody know where is the best place for them to find you, your websites, Instagram, all of that kind of stuff.
Firstly, let me just tell you, thank you so much for having me on. It's kind of it's a little surreal because I do listen to the podcast every week, and to be here on it now is very surreal. So you want to talk about nerves? Maybe I had nerves going into this one as well. But most of my stuff or everything can be found through my website. Is kind of like my portal to everything. So it's dsgphoto.com, and in there is links to my Instagram, my I don't really use Facebook very much for my photos, but Instagram, and even my IMDb listing, which is kind of fun to look at. You can actually see all the productions I've worked on there. So that's been fun building that over the years. And hopefully soon, now that I have a little bit of downtime, that my website will get updated soon, because it was one of my early COVID projects. So it's some of the really interesting work that I've done isn't even on there yet. So I'm excited to share some of that work soon.
Thanks to Darren Goldstein, and of course links on the show page today, which you'll find at fujicast.co.uk. Right, more Mullins. Everyone needs some more Kev in their life, surely, don't they? If that requirement comes with the need to hear country music, then you're in double luck. Every Thursday at 3:30pm UK time, Kev's country music show takes to the airwaves on the internet radio station incapablestaircase.com. But if Thursdays at 3:30 are impossible because you're in a board meeting and your boss prefers ABBA second time round, then you can play catch up, and we'll link to that today. And then, with COP26 ending in tears for COP President Alok Sharma, but still a rallying call for a deal that's hopefully going to pave the way for the future and more progressive conversation, it's probably timely that on my own podcast called Photography Daily that we talk about the Earth and our impact upon the animals that walk it and coexist alongside us. And to help me do that, I have one of those sort of photographers who hasn't just made pictures about the plight of animals, which in this case is Africa, but has helped to set up the most extraordinary foundation that now protects over 1.6 million acres of wilderness, cutting poaching, protecting animals that otherwise would end up as fashion accessories or displayed upon a wall or you know, the kind of thing. His international shows and works are shaping the way many think about how we're impacting environment. Nick Brandt is my guest this Friday on my podcast, Photography Daily, on the Photo Walk edition, and I'm delighted to have a chance to talk to him about Inherit the Dust, the most incredible exhibition that I saw in 2016 at Photo London, that most certainly left a mark on the way that I view this kind of photography.
I think of it as street photography,
right?
Which may sound odd. It's kind of land art meets street photography. Yes, we put these giant panels in those places, but then I just wanted to wait for the people who live there in those places to be oblivious to those animal portraits. They're just like ghosts in the landscape.
So Nick Brandt is my guest on Photography Daily on Friday, which is available wherever you get your podcasts, including this app, or indeed you can listen to it on the net, which is at photographydaily.show. Right, back to your questions. We didn't take one from the Facebook group yet, Kev, so...
no, because we had a load of patrons.
I know, a timely moment, Kev, to delve into Facebook, the land of Facebook. The Book of Face.
The Book of Face. Okay, so as is tradition, I will start with the latest question, which came in a very, very recent 2 hours ago, and it's from John Wayne, our friend John Wayne.
Yes.
A really interesting question, actually. I'm not sure whether it's a question we can answer. Suppose film photography had never existed and we only had photographs since videos first became available. Would modern photography look the same if we weren't so nostalgic about the old film and cinema look?
Did when you say supposing film didn't exist, did you mean supposing digital hadn't come along and we were?
No, supposing film photography didn't happen.
What?
And
No pictures out of cameras at all.
up until digital.
Oh, right. Okay, and when digital was
I presume that's how I'm reading that question.
Oh, I see.
I might be reading it wrong.
So nobody invented the alchemic process of producing pictures from well before the Victorian period and onwards. And
film photography had never existed.
Yes, right. I've got it now. Got it now. Wow. And then we just suddenly start with digital in 2004 or just before, wasn't it? 1990.
Would modern photography look the same? My take on that is probably, it would look different because we wouldn't have all of that old, lovely, grainy black and white stuff. And perhaps because of that, we wouldn't have things like, grain settings in cameras and black across settings, for example.
Or maybe they wouldn't have really even considered black and white as what we need because it was never there before. They'd have gone straight into colour. Somebody would have said, black and white? What, are you mad? What's all about putting colour? Yeah,
exactly. Although, and then it says, would modern photography look the same? And I think actually photography itself is still based on those three principles, isn't it? Light, composition, moment, and photography is still, the technicalities of it is still based on the triangle, the aperture, the exposure triangle. It is now, and it was in those cameras that we're pretending didn't exist. So I think the way photography would happen is would be the same. But I think perhaps would we still be hankering after those old black and whites and things like that and wanting our digital images to look like that if we'd never seen them? Interesting. It's not an answer, is it? It's not something we can answer, but it's an interesting
What about all those amazing photographers that have shaped our lives and told the stories, such as the McCullens, who we eulogise about? All those missing historical characters, Kev. What would we have done?
There's quite a few historical characters I wish we'd missed.
What, photographically?
No, just generally in life.
Oh, well, that's the same with everything, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Right, question on the X100V. Matt Fletcher. Hello, guys. I hope all is well and you both had a great weekend. Yarda. Maybe this is a silly question, there's no such thing as, but it's one that's been bugging me for some time. When I use the optical viewfinder on the X100V and I focus, the whole grid sometimes shifts slightly across the screen. Why is that? I'm not sure if that explains it clearly enough, but I hope any information and advice on focusing using the optical viewfinder could be shared. I've begun recently taking photographs again in and around Chengdu in China, where I live. Finally upgraded from the X100F. The camera's a joy to use, and I'm extremely happy with the upgrade. And his Instagram, if you want to see it, is Matt Fletcher. Matt Fletcher. Oh, no, I think it's Matt Fletcher with 3 T's. I'll check that while you're answering that question, Kev.
Okay, yeah. So, it's perfectly normal. That's the parallax coming into play. So, optical viewfinder has to adjust the frame lines for the way that you'll look, because the viewfinder is not, it's top left, so it's not looking through the lens.
Yeah.
So, it will adjust it. You have an option in your camera to automatically adjust frame lines. You can switch that on or off.
Yeah.
I would suggest having it on, though, because then you'll get a more accurate composition.
There we go.
That was textbook, that.
That was textbook. I liked it. Matt Fletcher.
Proud of that answer.
Well, and I can't find his Instagram. I've copy-pasted Matt Fletcher, but with 3 T's, nothing's going on. There's loads of Matt Fletchers in the world. How many Matt Fletchers are there, Kev?
Hang on. I think 1,633,020.
You're spot on. Look at that. You got the answer for that one right as well. Incredible. Right. Facebook.
I wonder if that's a China thing. If he's in China, can we see Chinese Instagram accounts?
I don't know. I would have thought Instagram would be all one big happy platform family, wouldn't it?
I don't know. They don't have Google and things like that over there, do they?
No, they don't. No.
I don't know. I really don't know.
They still have access to Instagram in China, don't you?
Presumably, because he shared his Instagram account with us. But I don't know whether it's ring-fenced for Chinese users only.
Oh, maybe.
I really don't know. I'm just trying to tenticulate why you can't see the Chinese Instagram account.
Matt, could you write back and let us know that? But obviously don't send us a message through Instagram.
Yeah.
Right, Facebook.
Okay, so we have a question from Dan Hoss. Hello, I'm due to jet off on my hollybobs in the new year with the family, and we'll be bringing the camera XT3 plus 23mm f2 to document and mostly annoy the missus and the nipper. I'm having a small crisis on what to do with my files. Do I pack my MacBook and external hard drive and transfer my raw files each day, or should I bring a small army of SD cards?
Oh, God.
My concern with bringing the laptop is I'll spend my evenings editing photos rather than enjoying the spoils of an all-inclusive bar.
Well, you can take your laptop to the bar.
Yeah.
Well, and not if it's a pool bar, though. Could be in trouble then.
Yeah. You know what I do? If it's an XT3, you've got two memory cards.
Two cards.
Yeah,
keep one. Yeah, keep them separate. And
228 gig cards.
That's it. Perfect.
Back to back, you're good to go. You don't need to download them then.
Job done.
If you've got if you've got a MacBook, you've probably got an iPad or an iPhone or something other specific, which you can, if you wish to have a look at some of them on the go, you can do that. That's probably what I would do.
Yeah.
And if you don't think, if you're lucky enough to be going on hollybobs for an extended period of time and you don't think 128 gig is big enough, 256 gig. Or you can even go to 512 gig. In fact, I think you can go to 1 terabyte cards in the XT3.
Or shoot RAW on one, the ones that you intend to edit later, and put everything else on JPEG. And I'm assuming that the Hollybobs Hotel will have some decent internet, and you can just put them up into the cloud each night, knowing that everything is safely there and you can sleep soundly at night. The result of having had far too many cocktails.
Yeah. Perfect.
Sorted. Book.
Book. 1 second while I avatar the answer to that, because I always put a little avatar to the questions that I've answered.
Right.
There you go.
What's your avatar of choice now, Kev? Is it still the...
It's always different. Everyone's different. Each question gets a different avatar. So Dan got a picture of me opening a bottle of champagne to celebrate him going on holiday.
Did he? Where'd you get an avatar like that this time of year? Do you mean emoji?
No, it's an avatar.
Is it?
Comment with an avatar sticker. That's the button.
Oh, with a sticker. So with a sticker. Yes.
You can in face. I think you only can do it on your phone, but you can set up an avatar that looks roughly like you, which is brilliant. Okay. So I got one that looks much better looking than me with a lot more hair.
Well, I've not actually looked in because you do the Facebook questions. I've not looked in the Facebook questions thread. So
if you look now, you'll see my avatar.
I'm going to go and look at them now. Right. Well, while you're looking at the book, I'm looking at you.
Okay, so Fred Herzog, Modern Colour. This has been bugging me for many years, this book. I've seen it so many times and thought about getting it. And so in the end, thought, yes, I'm going to get it. It was available. I found it in a bookshop, actually, but it is available on the internet. So the blurb is, Fred Herzog is known for his unusual use of colour in the 50s and 60s, a time when art photography was almost exclusively associated with black and white. The Canadian photographer worked almost exclusively with Kodachrome slide film for over 50 years, and only in the past decade has technology allowed him to make archival pigment prints that match the exceptional colour and intensity of the Kodachrome slide. In this respect, his photographs can be seen as a prefiguration of the new colour photographers of the 70s. This book will bring together over 230 images, many never ever been before reproduced. Reword that sentence in the right order if you so wish, and will feature essays by acclaimed authors David Campany and Hans-Michael Koglitz. Fred Herzog will be the most comprehensive publication on this important photographer to date. The book, that is. So yes, Fred Herzog, very famous Canadian photographer, as it says, and he's always been associated with this color work. And as it said there, he was kind of before his time, I suppose, really. Some of the pictures are, I would say, relatively recent, and we're talking about the 80s, but a vast majority of them are kind of late 50s, 60s, kicking around like that. And again, a little bit like the Tickety Boo book that we saw a couple of weeks ago, most of the images roll into two. So you might have a picture of an inside of a barber shop, and then you have a picture of somebody looking into the barber shop on the next page. There's a well curated theme towards the book itself. But by and large, this is purely, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, a nostalgic book. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful colors, like absolutely beautiful. And as it said in the blurb, he's managed to, or technology has moved on now for them to be able to get these pigments into print, if you like. And there's all kinds of photos from all around the world, but they are pretty simple pictures. So, for example, page 277, I'm looking at Man Walking in Antigua, 1964. And of course, it's interesting because in Antigua in 1964, people wore different clothes, the backgrounds were different. You can see the colors, you can see the hats, you can see the face. A wonderful picture. The opposite page, actually, 1963, Morelia in Mexico. And one of the things I talk about on my street photography workshops is this idea of separation but not overlapping. And this is a classic example of that. You've got 5 people all walking in different directions on a Mexican street corner, and none of them overlapping. And it really aids the visual composition of that picture. There's a lovely one, 1960, 2 boys literally just sat there. One of them looks like he's drinking a bottle of beer, but he's probably not. It's probably pop. And the other one's got his hands delved deep into a packet of crisps. Sat there, they look like, they're about to go off and, jump on their bikes and explore the neighborhood, all the stuff that kids used to do before stuff came along. Really interesting kind of studies of people, but also some newsworthy specific stuff in terms of fires in areas and kind of forest fires and all that kind of stuff that he would have been at. But really, for me, the stuff that I love is the general observations of just the people being people.
He does it takes a lot of him, not exclusively, but there's many images that feature, and this is where the nostalgia particularly plays well. I think when you look at shop fronts or from within shops looking out, I think the front cover is the one looking out of the barber shop, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just the people.
A Coke advert of yesteryear is proper nostalgia today, isn't it? Blue.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking at page 246, handshake, 1960. There's a grumpy old man and another man offering him a handshake. The grumpy old man's not giving his hand back, but the grumpy old man's got a red bow tie on, and he's got his trilby hat on. The shop window says special $1.19 a quarter. Can't quite see what it is a special, but just the fact that it's $1.19 and they refer to it as quarters and things. Coffee for 5 cents. It's brilliant. And all these people, what would happen if these people, now these people might be thinking, oh, you can't take my picture. What are you going to do with that? You stick it on Facebook. You can't use my picture. It's my rights. And we wouldn't have this wonderful book if people continue to have that attitude. Plenty of pictures of kids in this book as well, none of which imply that Herzog was a bad person or a nasty person, or doing anything negative with these pictures. In fact, he did the most beautifully positive things with them, and that's he stored them for everybody else to see forever. I think I have to say, though, I think my favorite picture in the whole book is page 230, and it's just titled Magazine Man 1959. His exposures are phenomenal, bearing in mind he is using Kodachrome slide. And there's this guy, it's a magazine shop, obviously, and the front of the window is covered in magazines and small books, and then you've got magazines hanging on a rail, like you might hang posters, and then you've got the guy, presumably the owner of the shop, sat in the window reading a magazine. I love it. So you've got True Story, Real Story, Modern Princess, True Romance. They're the ones hanging up, and then the ones on the ground, if you like, or on the shelf, you've got Complete Man's Companion, Saga,
God.
Ken, Men, Showdown, Argos, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. That's a little book. There's also a magazine called Climax.
What?
Don't be rude.
Brilliant. I love it. Probably none of those magazines exist anymore as well. And in that frame, you've also got the 2-penny sweet machines outside. Well, it wouldn't have been 2 pennies in those days. I love it. Yeah, I really love it. No Photoshop involved in any of this stuff either. It's good, honest photography. Not that there's anything wrong with using Photoshop, of course, but, it doesn't need it. And it does really show you the reason why some people, myself included, hanker after trying to, we pay thousands of pounds for digital cameras, and then we try and make the pictures look like 1950s film. Yeah. I'm very guilty of that.
I was going to say, hang on a minute. One of my favourite presets of yours is newspaper, which does exactly that, Kev.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm all over that. I love it. Yeah, I love it.
He only passed recently as well. 2019. He was, when was he born? Hold on. 1930. So it makes him 89. Is that 89? Yes, 89. Makes him 89.
It's quite a lot of good stuff. The curators of his archive are still doing stuff with his work, and I think you'll find some of it on YouTube as well. Yeah. Some videos of him actually out shooting and all that kind of stuff. So yes, Fred Herzog, Modern Colour is the book of the week,
and of course we'll link to it in the famous show notes. Question. Paul Sillard we done this one before? I'm just going to have to check on this one, Kev. I'm usually quite good at making sure I file them appropriately. Hello, chaps. Alias Kev and Neil. Insert yada yada. Just listen to your recent episode explaining the trailing letters of the X100 series. I.e. S for second, T for third, F for the fourth, V for the fifth. And yes, I did not know that. So thank you for expanding my Fujifilm knowledge. So my question is, what would be the suffix for the 6th and 7th? Because they would both be S.
Yeah, pass. No idea.
Kev, you know this.
X100 VI.
You have a hotline to the main people.
I don't know. I mean, X100 VI, perhaps. Even I tell you something though. Even when I was involved with the X100V discussions before that was released, they never said it was going to be called an X100V. You know, we didn't know. It's not like a known thing.
No.
So I don't know. Could be VI for 6. Could be X106. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. My guess is VI.
Yeah. On another note, says Paul, this could get technical here. I was mulling over the dilemma of a truly monochromatic sensor, such as the Leica mono cameras, versus converting a RAW file to mono. I recall somebody was talking about how nice it would be for Fuji-san to give us a mono X100 VM. Did you say that? If the color sensor with 24 megapixels, or megapixes as he calls them, contains 4 photo sites per pixel, I think there's 2 green plus a red and a blue. Does that mean that a 24 megapixel sensor is actually a 24 times 4 equals 96 million photo sites? If so, we didn't have a color microprism. Would the same sensor give us a 96 megapixel image?
Yes.
I tell you what, Paul is a thinker. He's an Australian thinker.
I still haven't given up on a monochrome Fujifilm sensor, though.
Haven't you?
No, it won't happen. I have actually given up, but in my heart hasn't given up.
Would you be at the front of the queue then, Kev? You would be, wouldn't you?
I even told them I'd buy 3 if that helped.
Well, there we are. That sorted the whole thing. Would you be queuing up outside the shop? Like, do you remember the Harry Potter thing where people would queue from midnight onwards, the night, sometimes many nights before, in little tents outside Waterstone's bookshop?
Get the book, yeah. Some of those books are worth a fortune, aren't they? Those early editions.
Yeah, you bet. Would you be doing the same then? You'd be parked up outside the house of photography. Well, you with your little tent. You'd probably have Git with you for security. I would actually.
I would queue up for that. That would, I wouldn't queue up for anything else in my life, but I would queue up for a monochrome.
What a photo story that would
X100.
be. What a photo story. Right, I think we've got time for one more. So
have you looked at my avatars yet?
I did. I just saw them. I like them. What a fun idea.
Yeah. Do you think they look like me?
They're better looking.
I recently changed it. I widened the body a little bit recently.
No, Kev, did you? So if I go back further, they will be thinner. No, you would not.
Probably going to get wider and wider and wider and wider.
But you're back in your exercise regime and everything, aren't you? Now you're doing your sports. You're back doing your sports. You got your jogging machine next to your desk. How's that going?
Yeah, it's all right. It's not as it's the thing is we're balls deep in weddings, aren't we? So it's like getting the time.
I beg your pardon. What did he just say?
Don't be rude.
That's exactly. I thought that's what he said.
The time at the moment is not our friends, not my friend anyway. But there you go. So yes, and as I said before, being British, I can complain about something that's actually very good. So right, let's get to another question.
Does that mean that probably means you're having a few beers when you get back when you get back from your what did you have trouble calling it last week? Your drinks reception. Go on, Kev, say it again.
Drinks reception. I can't say it.
That will never fail to amuse me.
I can't say it. I think it's the gap in my teeth. All the words fly out of the hole in my teeth before anything else.
Your little things on this Facebook. If you haven't joined the Facebook group, if you join it for no other reason now, join it to see what. I didn't know you were doing this because I've never had to look after that thread. I just didn't see it. But there's little ones of Kev here winking. There's one here. There's a yes as he jumps in the air. Or there's a beer one here, beer swilling one. These are very funny, Kev. Oh, go on, question.
Okay, Matthew Hevels. I currently use an X Pro 2 with a collection of older XF lenses.
Yeah.
I would ideally love to upgrade to a newer body, but I'm waiting to see what Fuji have in store for us with the rumored new sensor. The reason I'm cautious is that I'm concerned the newer future-proofed Mark II 1.4 lenses that Fuji have released will be so much better on the newer sensor in terms of image quality than my current lenses, that I'd be better off slowly migrating to the new lens lineup. I doubt Fuji would make its older lenses obsolete in any way, but with the new sensor technology. But I have read that older lenses were designed to be optimized up to 32 megapixels, and beyond this, they may not perform as well as they do now. Do you think the new sensor, if it's going to be 40 megapixels, will affect the older lenses in any way?
This is one of the reasons now you're changing your lens lineup, isn't it? Because you know this is coming, Kev. You can see it. It's coming over the hill like a cavalry.
Yeah, partly. It is, yes. So there will be a new sensor. I really don't know whether it will be 40 megapixels or, I mean, that's what the rumors are saying.
Huge.
My main concern with that and my main worry is if it is 40 megapixels, that it doesn't affect the low light performance, because more megapixels can affect that. So they need to get that in place. We'll have to wait and see what's happening with that. But what I can tell you is the new series of Mark II, if that's what you want to call it, although Fujifilm are officially not calling them Mark IIs, lenses are noticeably sharper in my mind even on the existing cameras. So whether that's because of the resolving factors of the lenses, or whether they've just got snappier linear motors in them, or whatever, it could be a combination of all of those things. However, what I would say is that I don't think that if you have a old, like maybe the very old, the first tranche of lenses, the 18 f2, the 60 1.4, 35 1.4, yeah, maybe they might be a little bit soft on a new super megapixel sensor, but the rest I wouldn't worry too much about.
Don't panic too much yet, Mr. Mannering. No. Okay, well, thank you for that, and thank you for your questions this week. That's it, Kev, for another week. Thank you to this week's guest, Darren Goldstein. If you've liked this or any of the week's shows, thank you. And if you can, of course, and you feel it's relevant, we'd love for you to leave a review. If you can share the episode on Twitter or on Facebook, you're an absolute star. Let us know where you're sharing to, because we do sometimes give those platforms a shout out too, as they say in Youthland. See you in the Facebook group. I love that, Kev, by the way. And now I think I'm just going to camp out that Facebook group to see how you what your avatar is going to be when you answer questions.
Matthew just got a picture of me riding a pencil with lots of mathematical equations around it.
Well, it seems relevant.
Yes, numbers.
Yeah. Send your questions, your stories about your work, and anything else of interest to click@fujicast.co.uk. And of course, go into
patrons bump to the front.
Yeah, patrons bump to the bump to the front if you join us. Thank you to those who are supporting the show by Patreon. You're very kindly. Music from Blue Wednesday, supporting music for the incredibleartlist.io, and we will see you next week. Bye, Kev!
Bye-bye.
The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production. Email the show with your questions and words of wisdom to click@fujicast.co.uk. Email any complaints and political nonsense to our wives, who will deal with your comments in their own good time and in their own good way.